Hi, I'm Teresa, and I have endometriosis. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. If this is your first time checking it out, thank you so much for joining me and Scooter. On this channel, I talk about all things life with chronic illness and Scooter, because he's cute. Today, I'm going to be speaking about endometriosis. Now, disclaimer, I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I am not a specialist or an expert on endometriosis. I am just someone who has this condition and I live with it every day of my life. So, however qualified that makes me, I don't know, but here we go. So many of you have probably heard the term endometriosis thrown around, whether or not you hear it on TV, in the news, from friends, family members, or you have it yourself. It can be a pretty debilitating, pretty life-altering disease. Now, this is a disease that only women can get. That is due to what the disease is. It is basically the lining of your uterus is called your endometrium. And basically your endometrium or tissue similar to that grows outside the uterus, which causes extreme pain. It can cause infertility. It can cause all sorts of really nasty things. I think the main things that are associated with endometriosis are that it can affect your fertility. It can actually prevent you from having children or make it very difficult for you to get pregnant and carry to full term. So I'm going to be speaking from my own personal experiences, and I will also be reading off a list here. I have information from the Mayo Clinic and endometriosis.org. I have information from both of these sources. So I will link below everything that I do mention in this video so you guys can check it out for yourself. I definitely highly recommend. Don't just take my advice for something. I'm only sharing my experience. Every disease is different for every person. There is no textbook, cookie cutter thing that fits every person with every disease. And so my experience may be different from your experience. So I highly encourage you to please do your research, check my facts, make sure that, if I do mention something wrong, please do correct me and lead me to the source that shows the correct information. Yeah, I just encourage you guys, do your own research, check this out for yourself. Again, this is just my experience living with it and a little bit of information I found online. So here we go, guys. So endometriosis, according to the Mayo Clinic, is an often painful disorder in which tissue that normally lines the inside of your uterus, the endometrium, grows outside of your uterus, like I previously mentioned. Endometriosis most commonly involves your ovaries, fallopian tubes, and the tissue lining your pelvis. Rarely, endometrial tissue may spread beyond pelvic organs. Now, this means that in rare cases, it actually has spread to the diaphragm and lungs. So that's in extremely rare cases, though. Usually it is confined to the pelvic area. It can also be found in places such as your bladder and your bowels. It definitely can affect your entire pelvic floor region. Now, your endometrium is the lining of your uterus, which sheds off during your menstrual cycle, and that's what you bleed out. So it's basically that tissue that is forming elsewhere besides inside your uterus where it's supposed to be. This can lead to scar tissue and abrasions within your body. It can also cause certain organs to stick together. So say that you have it on your ovary and your fallopian tube, well, it can act like a sealant and actually fuse the two organs together in places that they're not supposed to be together. So this can be a very painful, very not fun experience. Another thing that people might associate endometriosis with is very extremely painful periods. Now, honestly, I don't know why it causes your periods to be worse than normal. I'm sure there's some medical terminology out there that will tell you. I personally don't know why. I just know that it does, and I have had it myself. I can express from personal experience and also from many other women who I know who have or have had endometriosis will tell me that yes, it is extremely painful during your periods. And I'm not talking just like cramping, I'm talking like you are in bed, you are double over in pain, you are throwing up because the pain is so severe. It's like intense cramping. So according to the Mayo Clinic, common signs and symptoms of endometriosis may include painful periods, which I mentioned, pain with intercourse, pain with bowel movements or urination, excessive bleeding, infertility, and it may also cause other things that aren't related to your pelvic floor, like you may experience fatigue, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, and nausea, and these things are usually more prevalent on your menstrual cycle. Now, endometriosis affects an estimated 1 in 10 women during their reproductive years. So usually between the ages of 15 and 49, which is approximately 176 million women worldwide. That's a lot of women. 1 in 10. Those are, yeah, not good odds. So even though endometriosis normally affects, say, between 15 and 49-year-olds, it can come as early as your very first period. So depending on, when you start, it could be as early as like 9 or 10, or obviously it could come later in life as you're older. For me personally, we believe that it happened around age 14, 15. I was a late bloomer. That's about when I started my menstrual cycle, was like a month after my 14th birthday. And doctors believe that most likely that's when it started coming on, but it definitely wasn't until 15 and 16 when I started having severe symptoms of endometriosis. Now, some people may believe that menopause will cure endometriosis, and in a sense it can help, but in some cases, yes, it does relieve it, but not all cases. So endometriosis can actually, as I mentioned, cause scar tissue and adhesions. In my personal case, I've actually had literal tears in my pelvic wall from the endometriosis. And this is not something that menopause is going to fix. Now, it's very important that if you believe that you have this disease, to go talk to your OBGYN. It is unfortunate that in some cases, with regular doctors and maybe even with OBs as well, I don't really have experience with that. My OB is an amazing doctor. I love her to death. But my pediatrician, who I went to until I was probably about 15 years old, looking back at it, he's a great doctor for your average cold and flu and like your childhood scrapes and bumps and immunizations and all that. But when it comes to chronic illnesses, he didn't know anything. So unfortunately in my case, that meant I got a lot of him coming in just being like, I have no idea what's wrong with you. Yeah, that was lovely. Yes, if you have a doctor like that, please do seek out a second opinion, a third opinion, a fourth opinion if you need to. Definitely go to a OBGYN because they are the ones that most likely will diagnose you with endometriosis. Well, like many of my diseases that I have, there is no known exact cause, but there are possibilities that doctors and scientists believe may be the cause or contribute to having this disease. So something called retrograde menstruation, which is basically your blood flows back up into your fallopian tubes and back into your uterus instead of flowing out of your body like it's supposed to. You can have an immune system disorder is another thing that could possibly cause this disease. Different cells within your body can move to different places that they're not supposed to be. That can cause it. If you guys, are interested in more, some of these are like really big terminology that I don't know how to pronounce. So again, I'll put the link down below. If you're interested in getting more in depth of knowing what causes endometriosis, feel free to check it out. So there are several factors that can put you at a higher risk for having endometriosis. The first one is never giving birth, which obviously if you're a child and when you develop it, most likely you have not given birth. Myself, I'm almost 30 years old. I don't have any kids. So, it's like, well, it's just kind of the way it is. So pretty much every woman in the world, until they have a child, is at risk. That's not something that's like, you're guaranteed to get it because you haven't had a kid yet. It's just one of the things that contributes to it. Another thing could be starting your period at an early age is another risk for endometriosis. Going through menopause at an older age. Having very short menstrual cycles, so like less than 27 days, which basically would mean that you have shorter times in between your periods. Higher levels of estrogen in your body, or a greater exposure to estrogen. Having higher levels of estrogen in your body is definitely something that can cause endometriosis. Low body mass index, alcohol consumption, so just be careful with your alcohol. 21 and older. If you're under 21, please don't drink. There's no point. One or more relatives, mother, aunt, sister with endometriosis, so it definitely is a hereditary disease. Any medical conditions that prevent your blood to flow normally out of your body. I'm not exactly sure what that would entail. I'm sure there could be some sort of physical, structural, maybe difference in your body that could cause that. I'm sure there are other things. I'm not sure what that is, but that's just one of the risk factors. And again, endometriosis can start as early as your first period. Now, besides the pain and the inconvenience of that, there are some things that endometriosis, there are complications that go along with this disease. And I think the number one thing, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, is infertility. So I'm just going to read a little bit off my paper here. Some facts. It says approximately 1/3 to 1/2 of women with endometriosis will have difficulty getting pregnant. For pregnancy to occur, an egg must be released from an ovary, travel through the neighboring fallopian tube, become fertilized by a sperm, and attach itself to the uterine wall to begin development. Endometriosis may obstruct the tube and keep the egg and sperm from uniting, but the condition also seems to affect fertility in less direct ways, such as damage to the sperm or egg. Even so, many women with mild to moderate endometriosis can still conceive and carry a pregnancy to term. Doctors sometimes advise women with endometriosis not to delay having children because that may worsen their condition. Unfortunately, that's not an option for everyone. You know, like for me, I've had it since I was 15 years old. And I wasn't about to run out and get myself a baby just so I could not have endometriosis. Personally, I am saving myself to marriage. And so obviously there's no chance of me being able to get pregnant because I'm not doing anything that could get me pregnant until I'm married. And I'm not married yet, and I'm 29 and a half years old. So it's unfortunate that while, yes, getting pregnant right away can help, that is not always an option for many women. And it's just sad that it can really affect your chances later on in life of being able to not only get pregnant, but to be able to carry full term. Another complication of endometriosis is actually ovarian cancer. It occurs at higher than expected rates in women with endometriosis. But the overall lifetime risk of ovarian cancer is low. So even though your chances are higher, it's still not like super likely that you are going to get ovarian cancer, unless of course you have a family history or some other risk factors for that. To diagnose endometriosis and other conditions that cause pelvic pain, your doctor will ask you to describe your symptoms, including the location of your pain and when it occurs. Tests to check for physical clues of endometriosis include a pelvic exam, an ultrasound, and a laparoscopy. Now, in my experience, I have been told that the only way to absolutely surefire confirm that you have endometriosis is laparoscopy. Laparoscopy is a type of surgery. It is very minimally invasive where they make 3 or 4 incisions in your abdomen and lower pelvic region, and it is basically a little tiny machine that can go in there and remove things. I have had this surgery many times, and it's a minimally invasive. So instead of having to completely cut you open like they would have done back in the old days, or like say you have a C-section, you have a big old scar across your belly, you just have little bitty scars here and there, and that is how they're able to get in there with a camera, and they look and see exactly if you have it, and if you do, they're able to remove that infected tissue. If you are interested in learning more about laparoscopy, what it is, what it looks like, what the experiences are, And I'll leave a link in the description to a website or something basically describing what it is and how it is used in multiple different situations, not just for endometriosis. It can also be removed. It can also be used to remove your appendix. Another thing that I wanted to mention is polycystic ovary syndrome or ovarian cysts are known to accompany endometriosis. So whether or not one causes the other, I personally don't know. I just know that people who have one a lot of times will have the other, myself included. There's two basically major treatments for endometriosis. One is medications, one is surgery. Now, the medication that is usually used for endometriosis is birth control. And this basically can just help regulate your periods. It can help with the pain. You know, it regulates things so that you are less likely, I guess, to create the endometrium. And in certain cases, more extreme cases like mine personally, you can be on something called continual birth control, whereas you do not have a period at all. Because for me, if I am to ovulate at all, then it just creates endometrium in my body and it seems to just spread like crazy from there. So I am actually on two types of contraceptive. I am on a Mirena IUD and I'm also on an oral birth control pill. Now, along with birth control, there is surgery. Like I mentioned, laparoscopic surgery. While that can diagnose it, it is also a treatment. Now, surgery is definitely something that you need to really discuss with your doctor. Sometimes, say you're trying to get pregnant, sometimes a doctor will recommend like 6 months to a year before you're trying for kids to have the surgery, because that way they can go in, they can clean out all the gunk that they find in there, and that will up your chances of being able to get pregnant. Now, again, also in my cases, it wasn't for trying to get pregnant. It was for the fact that I was in so much excruciating pain. There was no other option. We had already exhausted all of our resources, and so the next step was surgery. Now, the problem with any surgery is when they go in and do things, remove parts, it creates scar tissue, and scar tissue can actually cause pain. It's like one of those things that it's helping you, but it could possibly hurt you at the same time. And there's always risk with surgery. With any type of surgery, there's always risk of complications. And the more surgeries you have, obviously, the higher your risks are going to be, just because you're having more of them. So surgery is not something to take lightly. It takes quite a while for your body to recover afterwards. I mean, it's an abdominal surgery, so it can be quite stressful, and you need to take quite a lot of time off to rest and heal your body before you're able to really do basic things again. So surgery is not something, it should not be your first resort. It should be your last resort. It should be under the supervision and the recommendation of a very, very well-trusted doctor. And it's something that should not be taken lightly. Now, there are things that can be done if, say, you are having infertility problems related to endometriosis. As I mentioned, the laparoscopic, sometimes they'll do that before you try and get pregnant, clear it out. Also, people or women with endometriosis have tried like things like in vitro fertilization. So, you know, some women will choose in vitro. That is something that has helped certain women with endometriosis to be able to get pregnant. Now, of course, like anything, there are things you can do at home to help with this condition. Mainly, this revolves around the pain that you experience from your endometriosis. So basically, it's kind of like what you would do when you're on your period. Warm baths, like Epsom salt baths and stuff, really help because it can help relax your muscles. Taking things like Advil or Motrin, or just over-the-counter medications, can definitely help with the pain. It is actually possible to get on prescription pain medication, but that is and should only ever be used in severe cases where nothing else has worked. You know, definitely I do not recommend just jumping to that right away because of all the issues that come along with taking pain medication. That is for very severe cases where nothing else seems to work and you have extensively talked it over with your doctor. Another thing is just regular exercising and stretching, kind of working your pelvic floor muscles. Physical therapy, those are definitely things that can can basically increase your quality of life. Well, it will not stop the endometrium from growing. It will help you deal with the pain that is associated with this disease. So along with that, of course, we have acupuncture. If you watch my other videos, you know that I am obsessed with acupuncture. Everyone needs acupuncture. It greatly, greatly helps my reproductive organs and my endometriosis, and it helps the pain and all sorts of things. Yeah, acupuncture is just honestly one of the most amazing things that I've ever experienced from multiple symptoms. It's very helpful. Other things that are definitely helpful with dealing with this is more like managing your pain versus really curing the diseases. This is more managing the symptoms. Essential oils are wonderful, you know, a wonderful tool to help you cope and deal with these issues. I'm sure there are like natural herbs and supplements that you could go and talk to, like say a naturopath about, that could definitely, you know, help relieve some of the symptoms that you are experiencing. And last but not least, one of the most important things is to make sure that you have a support system. Now, I know that not everyone is blessed with family and friends who love them, support them, are encouraging, or helping them. I understand that. So, you know, for those who are, you know, take advantage, seriously, because not everyone has that blessing in their life. If you don't, you know, there are other options out there. I'm sure your doctor could probably put you in contact with a group of women who are also experiencing this. But if you have Facebook, which most people have Facebook nowadays, look on Facebook. There are so many groups on there of women who are experiencing the same things, and there are groups out there for women dealing with infertility and trouble getting pregnant. It is very, very important that you have a support system. Again, whether that be in your physical life, where you have family, friends, even your doctors can be a support system in a way, or an online life where you have people that maybe they don't even live in the same country as you, but you are able to connect to over the internet and support each other and really learn how to cope with this. So the signs and symptoms of endometriosis can actually go away when you're pregnant. The reasoning behind this is endometriosis is created when you're producing eggs. Now, when you're not pregnant, obviously your uterus, this is basic like one-on-one health here, like freshman health. But you're for those of you who maybe don't know, maybe you're a man or maybe you're a younger person or you just don't know. So I'll give you a basic overview of how the female reproductive system works. So your body will line your uterus with endometrium, and that is basically preparing itself for the egg to settle, the fertilized egg. Well, if you don't have a fertilized egg, it will then shed all that gunk and junk that it doesn't need, because obviously there's no baby, so it'll shed that gunk and release it, and that's when you bleed. Now, the endometrium is created when you're ovulating, because that is when it is growing this tissue to cushion the egg. That's why when you're pregnant, you don't have the symptoms, because your body is no longer creating that tissue, because it's already done its job, it's already done what it needed to do. And when you're pregnant, it kind of sets everything at a standstill. So I've heard from people who have endometriosis when they're pregnant, they're like, I never felt better when I was pregnant because I didn't have any pain anymore, I didn't have any symptoms anymore. So sometimes, you know, pregnancy, well, I wouldn't say it could cure it. I mean, I think in some cases it probably can, but I do know in some cases you can have symptoms return after you start ovulating again. But the actual like creation of endometriosis will definitely end when you're in menopause, unless you're taking estrogen, because while you still might have the pain and certain symptoms like scar tissue and stuff, your body is no longer producing endometrium, so you will no longer have endometriosis. And basically the very last thing that you can do to fix endometriosis is a hysterectomy. Now, this is in extreme cases, it's basically a last resort. I mean, if you've literally tried everything you can try And I also recommend trying like pelvic floor physical therapy, because sometimes it's actually your muscles that are causing the pain. So I mean, if you have exhausted absolutely every other option that you can do, sometimes they will suggest, okay, if it's really affecting your life that severely, then let's do a hysterectomy, which will remove all of the things that create the endometrium so that you no longer have it. Doctors, when you're younger, they don't want to do a hysterectomy because that can actually cause a lot of problems later on in life. So this might be something that, like, you know, you're getting close to menopause or something and they'll do a hysterectomy, or after you're done having children, when you're later on in life, they might do it. But it definitely increases your risk factor of a few things, especially if you're under the age of 35 when you have your hysterectomy. It increases your chance of cardiovascular diseases, so like heart and blood vessel diseases. It can create metabolic conditions. And you have to be on, if you don't want to go into menopause, you need to be on hormonal supplements until the time when you are old enough or ready or whatever to go to menopause, which is not good for your body either, to be on hormonal supplements, especially if you're like in your early 20s or mid 20s, early 30s, until you're like 50, 60 years old. You know, that's not ideal. So again, that's a very last resort, is a hysterectomy. Thank you guys for watching. I know this video kind of got a little bit long. I'm going to try and edit it good so that I don't have rambles here and there. But I would like to ask a favor of you all, if you could please give this a thumbs up. If nothing else, for the pup, because I mean, come on guys. Look at that face. How can you not give that a thumbs up? I mean, seriously. So yeah, give me a thumbs up, please. I'd appreciate it. If you could subscribe, that would be totally awesome. You know, if you're interested in these type of videos, interested in learning more about me, I do daily vlogging as well as these types of videos. So please definitely subscribe so you can stay up to date on my health and what's going on with me. I would really love it if you guys could chime in on the comments. Let me know, do you have endometriosis? Do you know someone who has endometriosis? What is your experience like? This is something that is hereditary, so maybe you have family members and you're concerned that you may have it, or you're afraid your child, your daughter might have it. Please leave comments below. I would love to hear from you. Share. Tell us, you know, be as honest or as guarded as you want. It's up to you. If you ever feel like, you know, wanting to talk to me, maybe not putting it out there in the interwebs, you know, you can definitely direct message me here or on my Instagram account. Go ahead and send me a direct message there. I'll actually probably be more likely to reply to you on Instagram than on YouTube, but we'll see how it goes. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. It really means a lot to me that you would take time out of your day to listen to my ramblings. Thank you. Bye. Say goodnight, Scooter.